What's up, everybody? Welcome to an all-new episode of Casters of Horror. I am Chris Mess.
I'm Shane, and this week there's something wrong with the children.
Yes, there is.
And the internet.
They're a bunch of strange little effers. But before we get into that, we've got a little bit of movie news. Yeah. First bit of movie news. HBO Max has officially ordered the new prequel series Welcome to Derry, which will basically start out as the origins of Pennywise and all the things that happened before the original It film. So that'll be coming to HBO Max. There's no release date on anything yet or when they're going to start filming, but looks like they are moving ahead with it. So if you're a Pennywise fan, there you go. You can check out more of his.
Congrats for you.
Yay. Yeah, he's got that it factor, I've heard.
Yeah.
You had a little bit of movie news this morning.
I do have a little bit. Although we're actually getting into the realm of games.
Gaming news.
Blumhouse Games. Yes, Blumhouse Games. Blumhouse
gaming news.
Productions is launching their own subsidiary, I guess called Blumhouse Games. I don't know. But anyway, they will be partnering with game developers, likely indie game developers, to bring their creative visions to life via original horror-themed games for console, PC, and mobile.
Nice.
So yeah, arguably one of the biggest horror movie production houses is getting into games. Good news in my opinion.
Yeah.
I am eager to, especially I like the idea that they're partnering with indie studios. So some of the best horror experiences out there are coming from independent studios. So
yeah, so we could get There's Something Wrong with the Sony coming soon.
There's a lot wrong with Sony. I say that as a fan. But
yeah. Well, speaking of Blumhouse films, are you ready to jump into this week's film, sir?
I am.
All right, because I think we're done with movie news. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump on in. This week, as like we do every week, this is a full spoiler review of the film. We break it down scene by scene. We tell you the things that we didn't like, and then we just continue on with the movie. Anyway, I'll let you know where I stand. Anyway, no, we'll see. It could be a bluff. Who knows? I got my poker face on. But this week we are reviewing the film There's Something Wrong with the Children. In a world where children are wrong. In a world where husbands are always wrong. Anyway, this film, like I said, was put out by Blumhouse Films. It was directed by Roxanne Benjamin, who also did the film Southbound, Body at Brighton Rock, Double X or 2X. It was a female-led horror anthology. And guess what? She also did There's Something Wrong with the Children. Silly. Interesting with that. And she directed an episode of Riverdale. Well, there you go. Anyway, it was written by. I have IMDb up. I'm being lazy today. It was written by T.J. Simfel and David White. Possibly not the David White who does all the Christian films, I would assume. No, VHS Viral, Crawl to Me, Intruders.
This movie was definitely not written by David A.R. White.
Yeah, this is not written by God's Not Dead, dude.
Those movies are horror movies in a completely different context.
Completely different.
And that they're just horrifying to watch.
Yeah. And horribly acted. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah.
It begins where we see two children playing. Everything is green.
Yeah.
It's just green.
Green filter on the camera. It's really weird.
Yeah. We got some music going. It sounds like the Finnish rock band, the 69 Eyes. I have no idea who it was, but it's yeah. There's music going.
I looked it up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I remember I sent you this message like right as the movie started. Right, because I'm like
That's
music.
okay.
I have to know who this is. It's a UK band called the Sisters of Mercy.
Okay. Well,
I loved it. I loved it immediately.
If you liked that, then look up 69 Eyes. You'll like them too.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I believe they're Finnish. If they're not Finnish, they're Swedish. I know it's one of those two.
Okay.
Anyway, we see the storm is rolling in, and the kids come inside. The storm doesn't play anything.
No, it really doesn't. I thought it would, but
yeah, so did I. That's why I took the notes. We have two couples staying at these cabins at this little. They're up camping, glamping. Yeah. What I guess we call that glamping now.
Yeah. Because they're staying in a cabin. They're out, at a campsite type thing, but it's very, very nice cabins, I might add.
Oh yeah, very, very nice. One couple is Ben and Margaret. Ben is Zach Gilford. Which to my surprise, he was in Purge, Anarchy, Friday Night Lights last winter, but he was also Riley Flynn in Midnight Mass, which I just found out.
Me too this morning.
Yeah, Shane mentioned it to me, and I was like, I knew I had seen that guy in Midnight Mass. If you guys haven't watched Midnight Mass is one of the greatest TV Netflix originals that nobody's watching. I mean, I've hardly heard anybody talking about it. It is brilliant.
Yeah, it was kind of popular, when it came out.
It had its little bit of blip, but not nearly what it should have had.
No. More people should be watching that one. Such a good show.
Margaret is played by Alicia Wainwright, who was known for Raising Dion and Shadowhunters. She was also in the movie Palmer and Lethal Weapon, the TV series. And she was also in There's Something Wrong with the Children, which ironically is the film we're talking about. The other couple is Ellie and Thomas. They're the ones who have the two kids. Ellie is played by Amanda Crew, which I hit the wrong button. Great. This ought to make for a great show today, folks.
Yeah.
Played by Amanda Crew. She was in The Haunting in Connecticut, Final Destination 3, The Age of Adeline, Sex Drive, other films if you guys want to look up more from her. You can look it up on IMDb. And Thomas was played by Carlos Santos, who was in the films Vacation Friends, Two Broke Girls, Last Man on Earth, and Gentified. And he was in the film The Valet, where he played Javier. And he was the basketball announcer in Cheaper by the Dozen, in case you were interested. He was also on the film There's Something Wrong with the Children. That
seems to be the one film that these actors all have in common, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like that whole 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, which ironically Kevin Bacon was not in this film. Thomas and Ellie, they seem to be having some sort of marital issues. We kind of come to the conclusion of. They're kind of arguing, not really arguing. They seem kind of distant from each other.
He's like sniping at everything she says.
Yeah, not like pew, pew, but it's kind of like yeah. So they decide, maybe it's time for us to turn in. We're gonna go back to our cabin. So they leave for the night. As they're walking across the yard, the music starts up again, like the beginning of the song again. And I'm like, why do we have the beginning of the song again? The storm starts getting stronger outside. You're seeing lightning. And then all of a sudden, title card. there's something wrong with children. And then you hear
Bright, bright green too. Bright green letters.
Oh yeah.
Like covering the entire screen.
Yeah.
I loved the title card. I don't
know. Then you've almost got like this Billy Idol-esque like more coming in at the end of it. It's like, okay. But it's like, yeah. So it's the next morning. They're all on a hike together. They had talked about the hike in the previous scene, but I decided not to bring it up. But now they're on a hike. Because Ben was like, I'm going to take everybody on a hike in the morning. They're like, why don't we just relax and have fun? The girl of the two kids, she's Lucy. Lucy is played by, drumroll, Briella Guisa. She was in the film Ambulance. She was on the show The Terminal List and the show Station 19. She is showing off her almost like Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah,
to Ben and Margaret. We find out these couples are really close. They've known each other for a long time, to the point where Ben and Margaret are known as Auntie Margaret and Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
To which Uncle Ben dies later, and then he's like, with great power comes great responsibility, and then the kid becomes Spider-Man. And then he makes a box of rice. Different Uncle Ben's. So Ben seems kind of annoyed that the girl's just talking nonstop. She's not paying attention to where she's walking. And they're all like, they start laughing about Motor Mouth Lucy. Like she just keeps talking nonstop. Anyway, the hike continues. This
is a really weird thing to notice, but
go for it.
But Ellie, by the way, they're in this hike through like the woods.
Yeah.
Right. It's barely a trail.
Yeah.
Right. Ellie is wearing like a tank top.
Yeah.
Everybody who hikes would tell you that's not how you dress if you're going hiking.
Yeah.
No exposed skin. Okay. Because you never know what, poison this or poison that you're going to brush up against.
Yeah. So, and if you're going to dress down, just go bikini top.
Yeah.
Why hinder with anything else?
I don't know. I know that's a weird thing to notice, but I'm like, ooh, she's going to come back with like red arms. I don't know.
Says Senior Whitey. So he's like, put the sunblock on when you're in the car because the dome light might burn you. So another thing that she also does is she brings gin and tonic in her water flask.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're going to do some day drinking. So she's not really big. She doesn't want to hike. She's just wanting to sit around, drink, relax. So Ellie then asks Margaret, she's like, how are you and Ben? Which is the one's not having the issues, it seems. And she's like, oh, we're good. Blah, blah, blah. And then Ben's like making a path through the brush with a machete.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, that's typical Ben. It doesn't even seem like we're on a path, but he's just cutting his way through the foliage. So then we get this overview drone shot of what looks to be like an ancient temple.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, this thing is like got some ruins going on. Like it looks ancient from the top.
Yeah.
We get to the side of it. It's like industrialized brick.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is definitely not ancient. Okay.
Well, and that's what's weird. Like from the top, it almost looks like a giant industrial warehouse, except for made out of brick,
like stone.
Brick
to me,
stone.
It looked like stone from the top, and I'm like, oh, is this like an Aztec temple? We're going like, where are they at? And that no, it's just like, they're like find some factory. So so they're like, well, let's go in and explore. And the women are like, are you serious? And they're like, we're here to have fun. And so they all climb through this window hole, whatever thing.
Yeah.
They put the kids in first, it's like, you go in there and find out.
Yeah.
So the kids go in, they run off on their own through the dark in this place. And then the parents start freaking out. They're like, "Where are the kids? Kids, kids!" And then Lucy, the girl, she screams. She's like, "Ah!" And they all run to find them. And they're like, "Oh, it's just a false alarm." And then they see like this nest, like the boy has this nest of like baby dead birds.
Yeah.
And they're like, "And here's dead mama," and they're kicking it. And the boy, his name is Spencer. Is it Spencer? Spencer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Spencer. Spencer is played by David Mattel. Or Matley? Yeah, David Mattel. He was on Life of Beth, Four Souls of Coyote. He was also in the film There's Something Wrong with the Children. It's ironic, really.
Yeah.
They'd all worked together. Anyway, then they make notice that like something is busted these big passageways through some of the walls.
By the way, this thing that you mentioned with the dead birds has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with any of the rest of the like anything that's coming.
No, but see, the kids seem obsessed with death, which is weird. I mean, they really do. They seem obsessed with death, and that continues on and becomes worse as we go on.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder. It's like, is this the same thing, or is it just, is he just? And this is where I'll go into is he just
okay? That makes sense. I didn't make that connection, but you're right. Yeah.
It has everything to do with the rest of the so anyway, something's busted through the passageway, made big passageways and all this sort of stuff. And then they find this massive hole in the ground that goes to like this deep pit to like nowhere. They can't even see the like it's just way down there.
Yeah. And they mention, which you briefly mentioned, that this like sort of staircase had been built up to this wall, and this pit had been walled off, right? And they mentioned like, something busted through the wall. Why would they wall up, one room?
Yeah, why would they wall up the staircase to nowhere type thing? So this industrialized building has this staircase in it that goes to this room with a hole.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a big ass bathroom. They all stood around it and squatted. So
could be because again, this is another thing that like just doesn't really come up again. As for why, it was,
why it was so highly regarded. So Ben grabs a rock, throws it down to see how deep it is, and it's like just goes and goes.
Yeah.
Goes. And then Spencer, the little boy, says something in Spanish, and the dad's like, "What do you mean? The place that shines? What do you mean?"
Yeah.
And both kids just slowly point to the hole, kind of creepy, just down inside the hole.
Yeah.
So Thomas, the dad, puts his hand on Lucy's shoulder, his daughter, and she spins around quickly like she's been snapped out of a trance. Okay. And then she starts bleeding from her nose. Okay. And we see Spencer. He's still kind of looking down inside the hole. And they're like, "Oh, we need to get, something. Let's wipe her nose and all this, tilt your head back and all this sort of stuff." And
which, by the way, you shouldn't do if you have a bloody nose.
No, you pinch it.
Terrible
there.
Advice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just put all that blood down your throat.
Yeah. Great
idea. Get it really held up in the sinuses in there. Yeah. So Spencer keeps looking in. They all start walking away. Spencer kind of starts walking away with his dad. Yeah. Then he turns around and gets closer to the hole. And he's continuing to look down into it. And then they grab him right before he like steps off out into the hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben notices him and like runs back toward him and like grabs him. Yeah. Pulls him back.
Thomas then picks him up. His dad picks him up, so he's like facing the opposite direction of him. Yeah. And Spencer's nose starts to bleed and he's smiling, and he's wiping it away, but nobody else notices it. Okay. Nobody notices that his nose is bleeding. They start to leave the building, and then the camera goes down into the hole, and you're like, oh, what's it going to be down there? And then they don't show you nothing.
Yeah.
Now, what they do show you is the kid from the black phone is down in there.
Yeah.
He's trying to figure out a way out, but
there's a lot of really weird lingering shots in this film. Is. You know, like there was one with the storm coming in. There's one when they when they start their hike. Once he has chopped that path through with the machete.
Yeah,
they all leave the frame, and then the camera zooms in on like some of the plants foliage. There.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, we get like some living plants or something.
Yep. Nope.
Just I have no idea. Maybe was there something I missed? I don't know.
Wasteful misdirection is all it was.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys have seen this film before we talk about it. If not, whatever. Yeah. Next, we see him back at the campsite. The parents are all just hanging out, or the parents and Ben and Margaret, they're all hanging out. The kids are in napping. They're like, oh, that hike really took it out of them. They all start drinking. Thomas asks Ben, hey, you want a beer? And Ben's like, yeah, sure. And then he like opens the bottle on the tabletop, and Ben's like, whoa, I've never seen that done. I was like, how long have you been drinking, Ben? Because if you've never seen somebody open up a bottle on the side of a table,
seriously,
where have you been drinking?
I have a feeling that it was either the writer or the director saw that for the first time right before doing this movie.
They're like,
we gotta put that in there.
We gotta do this. So he starts showing Ben how to do it. Ben's like, meh, meh, meh. He's like the equivalent of Mia Goth from Infinity Pool. Like, this is how you do things when you're doing it wrong. She's like cutting the butter, the roll. It's the I don't know how to make anything work thing. So, and it's a beat up table. It's an outdoor picnic table, beat to hell. It's like a slab of wood that's like weathered, and I mean, it's not anything nice. No. And then Ellie is just like, you should be doing that to somebody else's table.
Yeah.
And it just gets like awkward.
It is very weird.
And they're all just kind of like, okay. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right, honey. Sure. Okay. And they're like, hey, you want to go play some horseshoes? And okay. So the guys leave. And then Margaret looks at Ellie and she's like, okay, how about you and I go make a salad and we need to talk.
Yeah.
So they go in to have the salad, and then she's like, what's going on with you? She's like, I'm not going to say. And she's like, you should say. And then she's like, okay, fine. We're going to need some wine then.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So we find out, the guys are outside, and he's Thomas is asking Ben, because now they're grilling. They're like cooking up burgers and food and stuff.
Yeah,
I guess horseshoes just sucked.
Yeah.
Unless horseshoes is code for let's go cook.
Yeah, maybe Ben sucked at horseshoes too. And
yeah. Meh. But meh, I can't do it. And they're like, let's go do something you might be good at.
Yeah.
So, and Ben's supposed to be some outdoorsy dude too. So I completely lost where I was at. Okay, so Thomas starts asking Ben, he's like, so when are you guys having your own kids? And he's like, we're not really kids people and all that. We like to just kind of go around and do our thing. And he's like, man, kids change your life. And he's like, that's what I'm worried about, type thing. And he's like, no, for good and all this. And so anyway, then we're back inside. And Ellie's like, oh, yeah, Thomas and I had a foursome.
Yeah. Sort of, because she's like, while I was getting boned, Thomas and the other guy's wife were just like watching us. Yeah.
While she
says that like Thomas and the other guy's wife started making out.
Yeah.
And
So
then so
she's
that's how
just
it
like,
started. And then so she
she's like,
started.
oh, okay, they're making out. Let's bone.
Yeah. Yeah, but then
Yeah. So this guy Thomas has now watched his wife get railed by this other guy, and she's like, I told him I faked it, but man, it was good. It's just it got awkwarder
It was
at
a
this
very
point.
weird conversation, and it took a
Yeah.
long time because there was a lot of those. Oh, I need more alcohol. I need more alcohol.
Yeah, I need more.
Come
Tell
on.
me more about what happened. And
Yeah.
and Margaret knew who the other guy was. It was obviously like
Yeah.
another friend of theirs or something. Anyway, it's now Margaret's like, well, what's wrong? And she's like, well, we haven't done it since, and blah blah blah, and he won't even touch me. And she's like, why don't you have the kids stay with us tonight? You and Ben can have some boinky boinky time. And she's like, that's a great idea. So now it's outside, it's later.
Yeah.
Lucy's just standing there staring at like the bug zapper, the light
Yeah.
thing where it's like bzz, bzz, bzz,
Yeah.
as
It's
the
probably good that you described that because I've thought about this before. Like,
yeah.
when's the last time you saw one of those? I mean, I personally haven't for a long,
Down
long time.
here, oh, they're everywhere down
Are
here. That's
they?
that's a redneck
Okay.
porch TV.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So I mean,
we had one when I was growing up, but I remember like even looking for one at the store recently, and I couldn't even find one.
oh yeah, they're all over down here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's we in this part of Texas, we have more. Okay, it has the second highest diversity of insects than the only other place is the Amazon,
Really?
and then East Texas. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them, and
Yeah.
especially when you get down around like the bayous and the swamps.
Oh yeah,
That
for
it's
sure.
between us and Louisiana. Uh, when you get onto those rivers and the lakes and all
Yeah.
that, and they're like all over down there. So
I just remember mentioning it to somebody one time, and they're like, "What's a bug zapper?" I'm like,
yeah,
"Really?"
yeah, the blue light special.
Yeah. But yeah, she is. She's just standing there like,
Yeah,
and
just
I
staring at
mean, she stands there for several minutes throughout this entire scene.
oh,
She's
it's the
just
whole
standing there
scene.
watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben is showing Spencer this gift that he got him, and it's these devil sticks. It's like it's two sticks with like a baton in between them, and you're supposed to
Yeah.
like spin it and do all these things with it. I've played with them; they're cool.
I didn't know what it was when he named it, but once he showed it, I'm like, oh, those things. Okay.
Yeah. So then Margaret's like, hey, why don't you? And then Ellie's like, hey, yeah. And so finally, like, hey, kids, what would you guys think about staying over? And they're like, they like don't answer because they're both like in a, they're still staring off at stuff. She's like, oh, okay, well, what? You guys are staying. And Thomas is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and then Ellie's like, well, we should probably go. And it's like right as soon as they're saying that. And they're like, oh, it's still early. And they're like, we got boinky boinky. So they leave. So next we see that the kids and Ben and Margaret, they're playing like the Magic the Gathering game or what. I don't know how they're playing it.
Whatever
they're playing
it is,
something. Then Spencer says something to Ben in Spanish. Well, Ben doesn't know Spanish. She's like, I don't know what you said. And then Lucy's like, he wants to go back. And he's like, what do you mean go back to your parents? And she's like, no, the place that shines. He's like, oh, the fort? He goes, no, we're not going back there. And then Spencer looks at Ben and goes, just hisses at him.
Well, Ben tries to talk to him about some other stuff they could do, right? Oh, we could do this, we could do it. Yeah. Just straight up hisses at him.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And his sister, Lucy, like grabs his arm, puts her hand on, and just kind of calms him down. And they're like, okay, well, it's bedtime. Let's get ready for bed. So they get the kids into bed and all this sort of stuff. And then he's like, yo, so what was going on with Thomas? And she's like, why don't you come outside? I'll bring the wine and the weed and we'll go outside and we'll talk about, what's going on with them. And then, so she tells him about the foursome and all this. And then she's like, so do you want kids? And then they have this conversation about having kids and all that. And then we find out like she wasn't the one who she didn't want kids. Ben kind of did, but was like conceding to the fact that, that she didn't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all we get from that.
And then she gets mad for him making her make the decision. And
yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's kind of,
yeah.
Kind of is your decision. I mean,
yeah. Consent is consent.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Well, unless you're in like Kentucky or,
yeah.
or any of those other states now. No politics. Anyway, yeah. So she gets high.
Yeah.
And drunk, which is very hard to do at the same time. Anyway, she does somehow. The next morning, Ben's cooking breakfast. Margaret gets up. She's like hungover from the weed. I don't know.
I guess.
Whatever. So she gets a text that Ellie and Thomas had awesome sex. She's like, woohoo, way to go, you guys.
Yep, date night worked.
And she's like, can the kids stay longer? And she's like, yeah, no problem. We'll keep them here. I think they were going for round 2 or 3. I don't know what the deal was. But anyway, she's like, where are the kids? Are they awake? And Ben's like, no, they're still sleeping. So Margaret goes in to check on them, and the kids are gone. Completely gone. She checks the bathroom and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, maybe they're outside. She looks outside and she's like, I don't see them. And maybe by the pond. No, they're not there. And maybe they're playing hide and seek because, they were playing hide and seek the other day. And then she looks around and then she sees their shoes are gone. And then Ben's like, wait, they wouldn't have. And she's like, what? And he's like, I got to go. I'm going to go check for them. And he runs off down the hike trail back to the fort to see if he can find them. Ben goes back in. He sees the kids. They're in the trance like thing again, staring at the hole. They both turn around. He yells for them. They both turn around. Spencer once again says something in Spanish. And then they turn back around and then both just jump into the hole.
Yeah.
Like jump into it. Yeah. Not like fell or slipped. It's like, whee!
Yeah, they jump in.
Yeah. Ben kind of just collapses because he's like, he doesn't know what to do. He sees him fall in.
I gotta give it to him too. This is, this seems like a proper reaction that one would have.
Oh yeah,
having just witnessed that. So
completely and I know, frozen.
Again, yeah, and again, I know that probably seems weird to bring up, but just like very, very well written and very, very well acted.
Yes.
Right here, because he, like you said, he collapses and
there's no screaming. There's no. I mean, it's just like, what do
shock.
I do? Yeah, it's complete shock.
Yeah,
and he's just like frozen.
Yeah.
And
that sense, you can almost like see it in his face, like he's sick to his stomach. I mean,
like, do I call? What do I?
Yeah. It just seems to me, because like in any other situation, you what we probably would get is someone screaming. When to me,
no!
Exactly.
No! Yeah.
To me, this was a very realistic response to how someone actually would respond, So, yeah.
He's just standing here and be like, the hell?
Yeah.
Stupid kids. The hell wrong with you? So he doesn't know what to do. Margaret's trying to call him. You can see it on his phone. He doesn't answer it. He doesn't even know how to answer it at this point.
Yeah.
He's in shock. He starts walking back. She calls him again. He answers, but it's just like breaking up. She's like trying to talk to him. He's trying to talk and say what happened, but it's just, she can't hear him. Just breaking up too much.
This is not a casual stroll back. He's like walking back like a zombie, and like his vision is a little blurred.
Yeah, it's not like he's
no. He is like
them little effers are gone. He's walking back. Yeah, because the outside of the lens is kind of like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like wavy. And
Yeah.
Margaret sees Ellie come out of the cabin. She's like carrying something to put into their car. And Ellie's like, hi. And she's like, hey. And she's like, I don't know. How do I tell her that the kids are missing and all this? All of a sudden the kids like hit the door and come running out the cabin.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh God, they're here. She's talking to Ben on the phone. She's like, oh God, they're here. I couldn't imagine seeing their bodies floating in the water or something. And he's like, yeah, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is going on? And he's standing there. You can see him looking at Margaret and seeing the kids and all this.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what did I just see then?
Yeah.
Margaret's lying to Ellie and them about what had happened with the kids and Ben and how he had taken the kids out for a hike that morning and, you know, that he decided to go for a second hike and all this. And
yeah.
the kids are running around like 100 miles an hour. And Ben's just looking at the kids. And then Lucy says, Mommy, why is Ben staring at me?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Ben's just trying to make sense of it all. The kids are sitting over along kind of the brush line of just almost in the forest, but not quite.
Yeah.
The rest of the adults are sitting in chairs and all the, you know, drinking again. And he goes over to talk to the kids and they're like, look, bugs, dead bugs, dead bugs. And they're like smashing them with a rock and all this sort of stuff.
Well, because they say that, and Ben's like, they're not dead, and then Spencer takes the rock.
Dead bugs, dead bugs, dead bugs.
So this comes back to what you were saying earlier about them being a little bit obsessed with death.
Yeah. And he said, did you guys go for a walk this morning? And then they kind of whisper to each other, but they're like, click, click, click.
Yeah.
Like they start chattering like insects to each other. And you're like, this is weird. And he's like, what did you just say? And she goes, it's a different language.
Yeah.
And he goes, did you go back to the fort? She's like, here, do this thing with this flower. And he's like, no, did you go back to the fort? She goes, yeah, we went. And he's like, well, why? And she goes, not until you do the thing with the flower. And he's like, all right, fine. And she goes, and she's like, don't get too suspicious, Ben, or we might run off and join the circus. And Spencer's playing with the devil sticks, but he's doing it perfectly now. Like the night before, he could barely do anything with it. But now he's like spinning it up in the air and flipping it around like crazy and all this. And Ben's like, hey, be careful. You might hurt yourself with it. You know, you could put out your eye or, you know, hit yourself in the head with it. And finally, he just grabs the stuff from Spencer because Spencer's not paying attention to him. And Spencer starts smiling at him, just creepy, and starts bleeding from his nose again.
Yeah.
He turns around and looks at Lucy, and she's bleeding out of both nostrils. And you're just like, what? There's something wrong with the children. So he just kind of backs off and starts walking back towards the cabin. Margaret looks at him like, what's going on? And then she looks over at the kids, and the kids are sitting back there playing again, and they turn and look at Margaret and just kind of wave to her, and she waves back at them.
And to be clear, like they're sitting in the exact same place, the exact same position where Ben first saw them.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like
nothing had happened.
Yeah. Like, yeah. And so it's kind of like not clear, like, have they been sitting there the whole time? You know?
Yeah.
What's going on with
this
Ben?
All just, yeah. So she goes in to check on Ben, and he's like, they went back to the fort this morning. She's like, they're fine. And he goes, I saw them jump into the pit. He goes, I don't think that it's them out there.
And he makes a note to say, like you did earlier, he said they didn't fall in, they jumped in.
Yeah, they jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's them out there. I think they went into the pit and something else came out.
Yeah.
And she's like, how have you been feeling lately? And he goes, no. He goes, that's not this. He goes, this isn't that. He goes, that's something completely different. She goes, I don't I don't think you're processing this properly. Maybe you're just seeing things and all this sort. Now you start to get in that at some point he's dealt with some mental illness
Yeah.
and he's gone through something that prior to all this and sort of stuff. And she's like, "Why don't you lay down for a bit?" And he's like, "Yeah, maybe that's a good maybe you're right. Maybe it's." So he gets his meds. She leaves. He's going to lay down. He gets out his meds. He gets a pill, pops it.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know about you, but at this point I paused so I could see what the
meds were. Lithium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
No, that's fine.
But no, yeah, I saw that it was lithium.
Yeah.
And then I had to look, okay, what is this used for? You know? That's the kind of movie watcher I am.
Yeah. But, when you're like, how far does this all go?
And this is why I love streaming.
Yeah.
Because I can do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if we were to do this in a theater, it would be like, holy crap. And someone who has mental illness doesn't have to look this shit.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he pops a med, he closes the cabinet, and Lucy's standing behind him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh God!" And he's like, "I just think you need to get out. You need to get out." And she's like, "But we want to play a game with you." He's like, "No, now is not a good time." And then he looks up and he sees Spencer in the window, and Spencer's like blowing on it, and then he does like 2 X's for eyes and then a smiley face, like a dead happy face. And then Ben turns back to look at Lucy and she's gone, and he looks back up at the window and Spencer's gone. They're just disappeared. Ben finally comes outside. He's sitting over by Thomas and he's like, "Hey, I got to ask you a question." He goes, "Do your kids ever scare you?" And he's like, "Yeah, they scare me all the time. What are you talking about?" And then all of a sudden Spencer's like standing there next to Ben and grabs his arm and scares the crap out of him. Makes him spill his drink or something. Then Lucy says to Ben, she's like, "Hey, Ben." She's been playing with like a fire poker for the fire pit on the ground. She's been dragging it, drawing stuff on the ground. She's like, "Hey, Ben, look at me." And she picks it up and holds it over Margaret's head like she's going to stab Margaret right through the head. And Ben jumps up and he's like, "Hey!" And they're all like, and she goes right back to playing on the ground. And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "Do you want a beer?" Like he's playing it off. And she's like, "No, I'm good." She already has a drink. And Spencer's like, "You want some chips?" And shows him the bag of chips, and there's like bugs all in it. It's like Doritos with bugs. And he's like, "Oh no." And he's like, "Aren't you hungry, Ben?" And shows him the bag again. And there's no bugs in it this time.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, there is something seriously wrong with the kids.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "You feeling all right?" And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And then Lucy grabs a beer bottle out of the cooler. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And she takes it and puts it next to the table and pop, does the thing that Ben can't do. And they're like, whoa, young lady, you shouldn't be doing that. But also at the same time, that's pretty awesome, you know? Yeah. And then Spencer's like, "Hey, Ben," and shows him the bottle of lithium and starts shaking it, and it's empty.
Yeah.
Completely empty. And then he like nods over to Lucy, like they had put all the pills into the bottle or into this cup.
Yeah.
And Lucy starts pouring the beer into a red Solo cup. This episode sponsored by Red Solo cup. She pours it in and she's like, "This is for you, Daddy." And as she goes to, he's like, "Oh, thanks." And Ben smacks it out of her hand.
Yeah. He's like, "No." Bam.
Yeah. And they're like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And then he's like, "Tell him, Spencer, tell him, show him the pill bottle, show him." And he's like, "Don't yell at my son." And he's like, he's like, they took my thing. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And then Spencer's like, and he starts fake crying and all this.
Well, because I think what happened, like, Ben grabs, he yanks the pill bottle or something away from him, and the kid, Spencer, claims he's like hit his cheek or something. I don't even, or his hand maybe. I don't, scratched him or something. I'm not even sure.
Then he's like, they're effing with me.
Yeah.
And he's like, tell him about the plan with the drink. And he's like, I don't know what he's talking about, Daddy. And then he's like, the empty bottle. And then he shakes it and it's full.
Yeah.
And the kids just smile at him deviously. And then he tells them about what happened that morning, about how the kids went to the fort and they jumped into the hole.
Yeah.
And all this. And they're not the real kids. And finally, like, shut up, Ben. And then he tell the kids to go play. And they're like, why did you let him out? The parents are saying to Margaret and Ben, why did you let him out? And they're like, we didn't. They just left. And they're like, yeah, probably because of you and your mental health. And it's like, okay, this is where this film's going. Great.
Yeah.
And they're like, you don't understand what it's like taking care of kids and all that, because you don't have any. And then the couple start getting into this big fight and all this sort of stuff. And they're like, oh, just because we don't have kids means we can't babysit them and all that. They're like, obviously not. You guys are all blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, well, it's not like we ran out and had a foursome. It wouldn't have been our problem if you guys hadn't had issues. And then like Thomas is like, oh, you told them type thing. And then he like stomps off.
Yeah.
And then Ellie looks at Ben. She's like, oh, come on, Ben. You don't think we talk about everything also?
Yeah.
Like your manic episodes and how you lost another job. And maybe it's not that she doesn't want to have kids. Maybe it's she just doesn't want to have them with you. And then Margaret slaps Ellie. And Ellie leaves. And then Ben's just like, are you kidding me? And grabs the pills off the table and he leaves. Yeah. This is the point where I left the movie.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, as someone who deals with mental illness, this is a very, very hard thing to deal with, is like people not believing you. Yeah. And watching all these movies where they use mental illness as it could be mental illness, or it could be someone's crazy, or maybe it is ghosts, or maybe it is whatever. It's like, and the hardest part is like he deals with a mental illness where he can't discern reality from fiction.
Yeah.
And that's part of mine too, is that same sort of thing. So it's like, this one was hard for me to watch. Did I come back and eventually watch the end of it? Yes, I went ahead and persevered and watched the end of the movie, but I had to step away from it for a while.
And see, for me, my thing has always been, I've always liked that in movies where you don't know, right? Yeah. And then as with having you having these issues and talking to me about them, it makes me look at that from an entirely different perspective. And so I'm watching this and I'm like, oh man, so
yeah, it's a difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah,
when things like this happen. And you go, is that real or is it not? It's hard to deal with.
Yeah.
We see Ben then sitting alone, and he's in the house, and all of a sudden we hear, what's wrong? And Lucy's standing behind him and scares him again.
Yeah. He's like stop doing that.
Yeah, you've got to stop doing that. And Spencer comes in, jumping and cursing. With every time he hits the ground, he's like, saying a different cuss word.
Yeah.
And he's like, stop saying that. You can't be saying stuff like that. He's like, why not? He's like, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore. You guys need to leave. And then Lucy's like, don't you want to know what happened this morning? He's like, yes, I do. She's like, well, I'll tell you if you can keep it a secret. And he goes, I won't tell anyone. And then Spencer says something in Spanish again. And she's like, he said dead bugs. And then she starts to talk to him a little bit more. And Spencer goes and he grabs the fireplace shovel. And he's kind of swinging it around and all this. And he goes, I need to know, that you guys are okay. I need everybody else to know that I'm okay. I need to know that I'm okay. I have to know this. And she's like, oh, I promise you're better than ever. And Spencer hits him with the shovel.
Yeah.
Ben goes to wrestle away from Spencer. Spencer's got like this grip on it. Finally, Spencer lets go. And while Ben is trying to wrestle it away, it gets shoved into Spencer's throat. And Spencer goes down to the ground and he's like gasping for air.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay. I was unclear what happened here. I thought like was Spencer like eating something or something? Because I thought I saw him eat something. And then I thought like maybe he like started choking on or something. I wasn't sure.
I don't think he was eating. He might have been eating something, but I know that the handle of the shovel hit him right in the throat.
Okay. I couldn't tell where it hit him. And I just know that he basically like started choking and gasping for air.
Yeah, and he went down, and Ben's trying to help him, revive him, and all this sort of stuff. Lucy's just kind of staring and smiling.
Yeah, all and smiling.
Yeah. And Margaret comes in, and she sees that Ben's trying to revive Spencer on the floor, and she's like, "What happened?" And Lucy just points at Ben. Ellie comes running in. She screams. She's seeing that her son is dying and has died now. Yeah. And she starts yelling at Ben to get out, get out. This is all your fault. Blah, blah, blah. You murdered him. All this sort of stuff. Margaret calls the police and she reports that there's a death. She needs to report a death. Thomas grabs the phone from her and he's like, I need to report a murder.
Yeah.
So it's not like that it was an accident. He's like, no, this guy murdered my kid. Next, we see Margaret is doing a handstand on a toilet vomiting. And then she walks on the wall to a mirror crying. At least that's what the shot made it all look like. She then composes herself quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then she goes outside and Ben is hiding around the corner. He didn't go far.
No.
He's just outside. And he's trying to explain about the ruins and what had happened and everything. And he's like, look, let's just go to the ruins. I'll show you their bodies down at the bottom of the hole. I'll show you. I've seen them down there. And she's like, and what's it going to do when they are down there? Huh? Yeah. Then what? Or when they're not in there, then what? She's like, I want to believe you, but she's like, fine, I'll go.
And I have to ask, did they have a shot when the kids jumped in? Was there a shot with them laying down there at the bottom?
No.
I didn't think so. And plus,
there was it didn't show anything when they jumped in.
I didn't think so. I know he walked to the edge, but I couldn't remember. Plus, I'm like, well, how could he see? Didn't they establish that it's really far down there?
Yeah.
And so he's like, no, I saw them. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I saw them laying down there in the bottom. And I'm like, we didn't see that. So, they go, they see that the kids aren't in the hole, I guess. Yeah. I mean, how could you? It's super deep. He panics. He can't make sense of it all. And Margaret's like, you can't acknowledge that you're wrong. He's like, I know what I saw. And she's like, you did this. Spencer's dead because of you. We have to go back. And he's just like, no, I can't go back. He's like, I saw what I saw. I can't go back, and so she just walks back alone.
Yeah.
Leaves him in there.
She leaves a guy who she believes is having a severe mental breakdown.
Yes.
She leaves him at the edge of a very deep pit.
Yes.
Just so we're clear
Yes.
that that's what has happened here.
Yes. Yeah. Another rough thing to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I've been left at the edge many times in life.
Yeah.
So where am I at? So yeah, she goes back. It's now night. It's like
Yeah.
super dark.
This must be a long
Um,
hike.
yeah, there's no cops. No
No.
cops anywhere. They called them long time ago,
Yeah,
supposedly.
and you hear him say when Thomas called, you kind of hear him say a couple hours. Yeah, right. We'll be
Oh, okay.
here. So
Um, Lucy just pops out of nowhere behind her, and she's
yeah,
like, "You should be in with your parents. Why are you outside?" And she's like, "It's okay. He's just playing."
yeah,
She's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Can I show you a trick?" And she's like, she goes, "Come on, I want to show you. It's in the woods." And she's like, "I think we should stay here." And she goes, "I want to play with you now. I want to show you what's in the woods." And Thomas sees Margaret with Lucy outside through the window, and he tells Ellie, he's like, "I'll be right back." And Ellie's sitting on the floor next to Spencer's dead body on
yeah,
the couch.
yeah.
Um,
And she's got
so
like her.
he,
She's sitting up against the couch, so she's got her
yeah,
back to
her
him.
back to him.
Yeah,
And then we see Spencer's eyes open, and then he just smiles devilishly, and you're like,
yeah,
"What?" Thomas goes outside, and he's like, "Margaret, get away from Lucy." Now he's mad at Margaret, like
yeah.
she's gonna do something, and Lucy's like, "Daddy, I want to show you what's in the woods." And he's like, "Well, yeah, I'll go with you in the woods." And Margaret goes into the cabin. Ellie and Spencer are gone. She doesn't know where they're at. She then goes outside and calls Thomas's phone. She's like, "Where's Thomas? Where's Thomas?" And she hears his ringer, and it's like just inside the edge of the woods somewhere.
Yeah,
So she's going to kind of look for it and all this, and she starts hearing these strange
yeah. It's
kind of
like
noises.
these like skittering noises.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then she calls Ben. He's still in the fort. He goes to answer the phone or pick it up, and then the hole where he's sitting next to begins to glow. It's
yeah.
shining now on him. And he's like looking down into the hole as this glow is happening.
That's greenish glow, like from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, from the credits and from the kids running. So Margaret goes back into the house, and she starts hearing like this bug like sound from the bedrooms.
Yeah,
She goes into the room because the door's closed, and it's like trashed in there. There's blood on the
everywhere. Yeah,
walls, all this. And she's looking around, and all of a sudden this hand grabs her ankle, and it's Ellie. And she's like bleeding, gasping for air. And she's like, oh no, getting
she's
down.
got this. She's got this. Ellie has this gash across her face and one across her neck.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. And she gasps for her life and dies right there. And then you hear this insect type sound again. And she sees the silhouette of Spencer down the hall, just his outline, his silhouette.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What did you do to her?" And then you see his eyes change and they shine like a nocturnal animal almost. Yeah. And then he chases towards her down the hallway. She closes the door and like barricades herself into the room, locks it, puts stuff in front of it and all this sort of stuff, barricades herself, any doors into the room, bathrooms, whatever, barricades herself. He's banging on the doors, and then you hear that chattering sound. Then we see this mantis fly bug like silhouette thing kind of go by this frosted glass.
Yeah.
And then we see when it comes around the corner past the glass, it's Lucy coming around the corner. And she comes into view. And she's like, want to play a game, Margaret? And she sneaks and she's grabbing her keys as the kids are counting down like hide and seek. And then they come running. She's opened up the door to make them think that they're out, she's outside and all this.
Yeah, I actually thought this was clever because she like makes her, she like quietly, sneaks over to the door, opens it, but then instead of running out, she sneaks into like a closet or something.
Yeah, grabs her keys to her SUV and just kind of hides. Then we see a bug silhouette again through like a shadow. And then it morphs into Lucy's form again because she's wearing like this hoodie with like cat ears on it.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see it morph into that. And then next thing you know, is it her or is it Spencer that pops up behind her and makes Margaret?
She's hiding in the closet, and it's Lucy.
Okay.
Yeah, Lucy's just like right next to her.
Yeah, like right there, and Margaret takes off out of the house.
Yeah.
Well, as she's running out of the house, a cop / park ranger, and I say park ranger because they're not dressed like a cop; they're dressed like a park ranger. We are not missing it like Hellbender. This is not a game warden or anything like that. This is park ranger.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Rent-A-Cop at this point, okay? And this park ranger is dumb as hell, okay? She's trying to tell her, what's going on and all this. I'm here to check on a dead body. And she's like, yeah, well, it's not dead anymore. They're chasing me around. They killed her. They killed the mother. Okay, so the mother killed the... No, it's just like this stupid... back and forth thing.
It is.
And horribly acted. I'm going to lay that out there.
Okay.
I don't know who this woman is. But man, that was bad. I mean, it was a bad job. I'm sorry. I gotta call a spade when it is.
This wasn't a great scene.
No. The ranger comes back out and she's like, oh, there's a lot of blood in there, but there's no bodies. I'm going to have to take you in for questioning. And then somehow she's grabbed.
Yeah.
And like pulled back into the house.
Yeah.
By something.
But you don't see anything.
No.
Right?
You're expecting to see her get stabbed from the back and like drop to the ground and the kids are behind her. That would have made sense. No. It's like, something has these long tendrils and has grabbed her and pulled her.
But you don't see the tendril. I mean, I didn't see him.
I didn't see anything.
And I was going to mention this earlier in that the couple times where you see the shadow and it's like the praying mantis, right?
Yeah.
It's got the, the wings and the claw things, whatever. But then before anything gets on screen, it's one of the kids. I'm like, okay, that's actually, they clearly didn't have like a CGI budget or anything.
Yeah.
So like, that's a pretty clever way to show that there's some sort of like insect monster.
Yeah, creature thing. Yeah.
It's a creature. It's creepy, but they kind of got around, their lack of budget.
Yeah. No,
so that's pretty clever. But I expected something.
At least hide the stick when you're going like this with the shadow puppet. That's all I'm gonna say. The hand and the stick underneath it. So she's grabbed back into the thing, blah, blah. Margaret goes running for her car or running around the side of the house, and the park ranger's thrown through the window. She goes to get into her SUV. She's unlocking the door because she's got the key fob thing to go boop, boop. But instead of going boop, boop, she's going to manually unlock it.
Yeah. Well, probably sound.
Could be, whatever.
If she's trying to be quiet, she just manually unlocks
so
it.
She's trying to be quiet when she could get into the car and lock herself into it or get away.
Yeah.
Got it. So she's running around. She goes to unlock it, and instead of getting in, she just decides to climb under it.
Yeah. I think she might have like heard some of the skittering sounds or something.
Yeah. Well, and then they're calling for her. They're like, Margaret, where are you? We're going to come find you. And then as she's under there, you see the feet of like Spencer, and he jumps on top of the vehicle, and you hear that.
Yeah.
And then you hear him call for Lucy in Buganese.
Yeah.
And then they're both standing there next to the car because he sees the car keys in the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when he calls
She left
for.
them in the door.
Yeah, that's when he calls for Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy comes over, and they're back and forth.
Yeah.
Margaret reaches down into her pocket, calls Thomas's phone, and they hear the thing, and they're all like, "Ooh, ringtone," and they take off running, okay, for the ringtone. Finally, she gets up, gets into the car, and then she sees Ben walking back into the house all mopey. Woe is me type thing. And she gets out and she like runs into the house to get him because he goes into the house. She's like, "We need to go. I believe you now." And I'm like, yeah, that's what it takes to get someone to believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when all hell breaks loose. Oh, let's believe the guy with the mental illness now. Yeah. He's like, no, I understand them now. I understand what happened. He goes, I saw it. And I followed them down. She's like, what do you mean? He goes, it's a place that shines. You can see it too. Come on. And she's like, I don't want to see it. We need to get out of here. He's like, no, I think we should settle down. Settle down here. Start a family. She's like, they killed Ellie. And I don't know what they did to Thomas. And he's like, they're young. They'll understand. We can make more. She's like, what do you mean make more? And she's like, you're not Ben, are you? And he does the typical neck roll. Yeah. You know, when something's, you're like, uh-oh, something's wrong. And then his eyes shine. He's like, we can make more together. And then she tries to escape. She gets down onto the ground. He's grabbing onto her foot and all this. She grabs his machete from his bag and like hacks him right in the shoulder. Gets him. And he's like, oh, and he falls back onto the couch like, oh, it's the end of me. And she runs out the door, starts going down the steps. Spencer has like something that he trips her with on the stairs. I don't know if it was the devil stick or which would have made sense. But she falls and hits her head on the bottom step or on the concrete at the bottom. Just and then you see the two kids kind of stand over her. She's rolled onto her back, and then she blacks out. Next, we see she's being dragged through the woods by her ankles, and she sees like this upside down flying vision of the kids.
Yeah.
Like it's just coming towards them. I'm like, ooh, what is this supposed to signify? Nothing. Yes, next, she's in the fort. And she's laying next. When she wakes up, she's next to dead Ellie and the ranger. The kids drag the ranger to the hole and push her in. The hole shines. Just like nom nom nom. Thank you. They drag Ellie then to the hole. While they're getting ready to push her in, Margaret gets up. She's kind of like sneaking around, and then they push Ellie in, and then while they're watching the hole give thanks to them, it's like itadakimasu.
When they push a body in, it glows. The hole glows green.
Yeah. Right, so it's like thank you.
Yeah.
And Margaret gets out. She rushes over quickly and pushes the kids in. Yeah. And the hole is like burp, and it's like thank you, you know. And it shines again.
My issue with this scene, right? Because she was crawling away every time the kids weren't looking. She was crawling like she was going to get away, and then at the last moment, she decides instead to run up and push them in. Right? Yeah. But I'm like, but wait a minute! You've just said that you believe Ben now. Ben, who said that he saw them jump into the hole.
Yeah.
So they jump into the hole, but then when he gets back, they're magically back at the cabin. What did you think pushing them into the hole was going to do?
Maybe she thought it would kill them finally for the last time.
Right, because it worked so well the first time.
Yeah, it worked
But
out great the
okay.
first time. So she pushes him in the hole.
Yeah.
She walks back to camp, and then like she's going to the SUV, and Ben's behind her.
Yeah.
And he pulls the machete out, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna let you go." Type. I don't remember what he says. He
I
says
don't
something,
know.
and then Thomas comes running out of the woods and tackles Ben. Thomas is like, "You gotta go, get out of here, get out of
Yeah.
here." And she's like, "Okay." And she jumps into the
Yeah.
SUV and takes
Okay.
off and leaves Thomas and Ben. And it's like, "Thanks for sacrificing yourself for me, Thomas.
Yeah.
Deuces."
Thanks. I'm out.
She drives out of the park thing driveway, takes a right turn, goes maybe 30 seconds down the road, pulls over and starts crying.
Yeah.
And she's like hitting the dashboard. I was very sad. And then she finally looks up and she sees Ben and the kids walk out into the middle of the road, and they're all holding hands.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, man." And then she looks up and she notices flowers that they had left for her on the dashboard. It's the flowers that Lucy had been picking
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the movie. She had been picking these flowers. And
It's the
they're
flower
on.
that she told Ben to hold up to his chin.
Yeah,
earlier.
when she said, "Do the thing with the flower," and all that. And she sees it, takes them, just kind of smells them, looks up at them, and they're all smiling back at her. And then she puts it into drive and floors it and just gunning towards them. And it's like, "There's something wrong with the kids," up on the screen again. And then it's the credits.
That's it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us this week on... what did you think of this film, sir?
I think there's a lot of problems with this film, right? Honestly, my biggest... There are a few continuity issues, like I mentioned, with her pushing the kids in. Probably my biggest issue with it is honestly that I just don't like her.
Yeah.
And especially...
I was like, why did she get to live?
Exactly.
Why is she the one? They're like, "We need a final girl." And I'm like, why wasn't the dude that was getting crapped on the whole rest of the movie? Why isn't he the guy who's left at the end?
Or
no, he turns out to be the villain anyway. I'm like,
or Thomas even. And that's what got me too. Like, Thomas tackles possessed Ben and is like, "Go." And she doesn't even argue. She's just like, "Okay.
All right, I'm out." Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yeah. Nobody. It just...
I don't know. All that said, for me, though, it worked.
Yeah?
I actually liked this movie.
Did you?
I did. I liked the movie. I have a ton of problems with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It was, like I said before, it was low budget in the sense that you could tell they didn't have a budget to have like a CGI monster on screen.
Yeah.
But like, I thought the way they did a lot of that still worked. It was still creepy enough, and it was, kind of like mysterious enough that, I don't know. Is it just because I've seen so much worse that this one worked for me? Maybe. I don't know. I've seen worse this year. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know. For me, I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't regret. I don't feel like I wasted an hour and a half, but yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's episode 20. It finally happened.
Yeah.
I have in my notes, "Dumb effing movie that deserves to be pushed into a hole and left forever."
Yeah.
I completely disagree. For a lot of the points that I stated in this, and yeah, yesterday was not a great mental day for me anyway.
Yeah.
But it just, I felt it to be exploitative in certain aspects, and
Sure.
and it just, there was just so much that didn't work in it that I couldn't find any redemption in it.
Yeah.
I couldn't find that there was something that would redeem it enough for me. I do like the guy who played Ben. I do have to say that. I do like him. I think that they had a good opportunity for him to be the final guy or whatever in this, and I think he should have been.
Absolutely.
But the fact that they made him then actually like the villain at the end, like he was going to be their leader, kind of, I was just like, what the hell? Something that also threw me off too is the special thanks at the end in the credits. Special thanks going to Ty West, Evan Katz, Axel Carolyn, and Bria Grant. I have no idea what they had to do with this film whatsoever.
Really? I didn't catch that. Wow.
Along with a bunch of other people, but those are the ones that oh, and Simon Barrett was another one. And I'm just like, were you guys just like inspiration maybe for this? It's a big possibility. I know that Carolyn Axel, whatever I said her name, Axel Carolyn and Bria and the director of this, I know that they have worked together before in the past, so maybe because they worked on that Double X movie or whatever it was. Yeah. I don't know what Ty West has anything to do with it, or Evan Katz, or Simon Barrett. But
it's funny because it's just one of the things where like I ultimately liked the movie, but I would be interested to pay attention to who was in charge of it, you know, the director and all that, and then not watch any more of their films.
Huh.
I know that seems so weird, but I have a very, very strong problem with the survivor of this film.
Yeah.
In many, many ways. And I have my suspicions as to why, you know, that person lived. But I'm right there with you in that I feel like it was exploitative, you know, and that does happen too much. I think they could have taken this in a direction where that character was redeemed. Not that the character needed to be redeemed, but, you know, in the sense that redeemed isn't the right word.
I get where you're going, but yeah.
Yeah, where they were
justified.
Justified. They were proven, you know, to be justified in the fears. I think it could be better. I really feel like the actor, what's his name, who played Ben? I don't
still
remember.
got him. I still got it up here.
I feel like this would have been for
Zach
me
Gilford.
probably okay. Yeah, I don't know if I would have liked the movie as much if it hadn't been him in the role. Like, I just think he was really, really good.
Oh, he's great
in the role,
really
and
yeah. I stand by the fact that this movie can lick my balls with its insecty, shiny tongue.
Yeah.
So anyway,
this is one of those where like I've mentioned to you before how like I've come across movies where like I liked it, but I could totally understand if someone didn't. You know?
Yeah.
I think I said that about you know, Ari Aster's films, where except I love his movies, but I totally understand where someone wouldn't.
Yeah.
This is nowhere near the level of quality of Ari Aster's films. No. Not even in the same ballpark.
No, you could see that they tried to do some of those types of shots.
Oh yeah. Some of I'm seeing a lot of that, and again,
upside down twerking on the toilet while she's throwing up, and
and I've mentioned this in one of our other reviews where I'm kind of irritated that so many directors now are trying for those like super artsy shots.
Yeah.
You know, and it just doesn't always work. In fact, I would say it rarely works. There are specific instances where it works. You know, and it obviously it works in Ari Aster's films. It worked in in bones and all. You know, they didn't work in this film. I
Yeah.
largely just make your low budget cheap
Yeah.
horror movie. That's
Yeah.
fine. A movie can be low budget and still be fine.
Yeah. Make your
You
film, do
know,
it your way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And if
stop
it
trying to
sucks,
emulate.
it's going to suck.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know, can't
yeah.
polish a turd.
I guess for me, it was more of the aesthetics of the movie I liked. I didn't care for the story. Lots that could have been left, or lots that was left out, and a lot of stuff that seemed to go nowhere, which we mentioned happening before. So
Yeah. To me, the whole movie could have been left out.
yeah.
But anyway, let us know
what
you guys think down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you guys hit like and subscribe. Tell us what you guys think, because this is the first polarizing review that we've had. The first yes and no.
You see, is it though? Because I don't really feel like this is much different from our review of Nope, where I liked it.
Oh, I did not like this. But
yeah, but you said you didn't like Nope either. That was so. I feel like this is one where I'm just over the line of liking it, and you didn't like it, just like with Nope. But it's not like.
Yeah,
it's not like we're at polar opposites, you know.
Maybe.
I didn't love this film. I just,
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was with Nope, where it was kind of like, wasn't that I hated it. It was just kind of like, okay.
Maybe you just hate this one a little stronger than you did Nope.
Because I think that's probably my whatever. But anyway, let us know what you guys think down in the comments down below. And speaking of some other films that we may hate or love, here's some coming up on the screen right about now. These are some films that are coming into movie theaters or onto streaming or on demand or physical copies that you guys can check out in the next few months or so.
Let us know if there are any on this list that we should disagree on.
Yeah, like this one right here. Especially
maybe that one.
Or that one. Somewhere in there. But anyway, next part of the show that we like to get into every week is real stories of horror. It could be 3 weeks in a row that I've done that properly. Not quite for sure without it not being in front of me. Anyway, I got a short one for today. This is not the story that I had. Well, that could be interesting. I lost the story. How did I lose it? Oh man. Please talk amongst yourselves while I find it here. All right, here we go. That was so weird. Anyway, this story happened a few years back. It's a very, very short one for today. This is told by a granddaughter talking about her grandfather. So my grandfather told me a story about how one time he was sitting in a chair in front of their house when he heard his wife repeatedly calling to him from inside. Problem is, my grandmother passed away a few years before that. But he told me that the voice was so pressing that he actually got up to look inside the house. As soon as he got inside the house, he heard a loud crash behind him and turned around to see that the chair that he had been sitting in moments before was crushed by a cast iron gutter that had fallen on top of it. If he had not come inside the house, he would have probably been seriously injured.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think that there are forces or something out there, energy that's telling us, that's trying to look out for us, or from the beyond? What are your thoughts on that? And maybe not from the beyond, maybe still here. That.
I mean, I don't. You know me. I don't particularly believe in the disembodied souls of departed humans.
Yeah.
There are lots of issues I have, in the sense that, for one, how do ghosts speak if they don't have the physical body to cause the vibrations?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into all the nonsense, but to me, this could be a case of him misremembering, after a traumatic event. So I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I'm also not going to just outright discount anybody's stories, though, because that's just as stupid as automatically believing everything.
Yeah.
So the reality is, I just don't know. I'm
Good answer.
whatever it is. I'm glad that he got up out of that chair, though. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it doesn't matter what caused him to get up and get out of the chair.
Exactly. He died 2 days later from a heart attack. Um, no, I'm joking. Let us know
She
what
could
you
have warned him
guys.
about that.
Yeah, she could have warned him about that. She's like, "Oh, get up quick! That thing's gonna hit you." Whoo, okay, good thing about that heart attack coming in 2 days. What? Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys think ghosts are real? This could be a polarizing topic. This could be the one that breaks the internet right here. This question. Who knows? This question is as big as Kim Kardashian's ass. But let us know what you guys think. While you're there, hit like and subscribe. Lastly, like we like to do every week, we do a little bit of pick or pass. This is something that we have come across in the last week, day, hour, or while we were sitting here filming, we happened to come across it. That didn't happen at all. But yeah, we let you know whether or not you should pick it up or pass on it. Shane, I'll let you start this one this week. What did you find, sir?
I came across a horror short film by a person by the name of Julian Terry. This is from a couple years ago. Apparently, one of not this one. The one before this was filmed like during like lockdown pandemic.
Okay.
But a year later, he came out with this film. They Hear It.
Okay.
And it's just about these two kids who are home alone, and some kind of like weird things start happening. Like on the TV, something like weird pops up on the TV. They're sleeping, right? And it wakes up this girl. She goes out to look, starts hearing weird skittering sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's basically about how her and her brother encounter something that apparently only children are able to hear, even though there are no adults in this short film, so it's hard to say we made that conclusion. But
Yeah.
no, it was a very good, very tense, very well done, little short horror film that at some point was supposed to be getting made into a feature length film by the guy who wrote it or who did It Follows.
Okay.
All right. But that was a few years ago now, and I don't know. It was picked up by Lionsgate, but I could find no other information about whether or not it is actually coming. But this little 8-minute short film, They Hear It, by Julian Terry, it's worth a watch. So even if it doesn't get made into a feature length film, I thought this was a good one.
Where can people watch that?
You can find it on YouTube on Julian Terry's YouTube channel.
Nice. Very, very nice. Well, I had to wash my eyes out from the film that we had watched, and I jumped over to Alter because, hey, it's a go-to, man.
It is.
And I found a short film, 14 minutes long. It's called The Bridge Partner. I was like, hey, is this going to be like The Queen's Gambit? Nothing like it. It's directed by Gabriel Olsen. It's about 14 minutes long. It stars Beth Grant, Sharon Lawrence, and oh, where's that dude's name? Robert Forster. So, I mean, there's some big names in this thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it is a short film based on a kind of a timid housewife who goes to her bridge club or meets up with a bunch of women to play bridge, and she gets a new partner, and the partner whispers something in her ear that turns out to change her life for the worst. Anyway, it could go on to be a brilliant series. And if they had continued this on like as a Netflix short series or whatever, I think it would be awesome. But anyway, it's called The Bridge Partner. It came out, I believe, in 2015. They just re-upped it again this
Okay.
week. So it is on their front page there that you guys can check out. It's gotten really, really good reviews, and rightfully so. Really well acted, really well done. So check it out, Bridge Partner on Alter on YouTube. So anyway, before we leave, make sure you guys hit like and subscribe. Make sure to leave any sort of comments down there like, Chris, you're an idiot. Why, blah, blah, blah. This was such a great film. And we loved Barbarian while we're at it as well. And you blah, blah, blah. And then other people would be like, hashtag mental illness awareness and stuff like that. Cool, whatever. Write whatever you want down there. We don't care. But make sure to comment while you guys are here and hit like and subscribe as well. Also put down any other films that you guys would like for us to decimate or defecate on. Sir, what film are we reviewing next?
Next, we will be staying in a cabin at the end of the world.
Yeah.
Except for this is going to be Knock at the Cabin.
Knock, knock, knock. Yes. Mr. M. Night Shyamalan's.
Yes.
I don't even know. I have not heard good or bad since the trailers.
Sure. I have
people
actually,
were excited.
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid anything about this film just because I read the book, The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, which this movie is based on, and I'm just curious to see, how true to the book it is, and if it's any good. I loved the book, so yeah, I'm excited to watch this one and see.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that guy. Yeah. But anyway, make sure you guys hit like and subscribe so you can find out when that thing comes out. Make sure to also check out our audio versions of this if you can't watch the video versions. It's located wherever you guys get your podcasts. It's the same exact thing, except you don't have to look at our ugly asses.
That's right.
So anyway, but you don't get the, little pictures and all the weird little quips that the jokes don't stop with just the audio, folks. There are visual jokes too that all of you are missing on the audio side. But anyway, make sure you guys join us for next week. Until then, I'm Chris Mess.
I'm Shane.
Get the hell out of here. We'll see you guys.